Blood covered my hand before I even understood what was happening. 1 second I was standing inside the construction office, trying to finish another report. The next, my knees hit the floor so hard that everyone around me froze. The room tilted. Voices became distant. Someone grabbed my shoulders. "Ethan, stay with us." Another voice shouted for an ambulance. My stomach burned like someone had poured fire inside me. Every breath felt heavier than the last. I tried to answer, but another mouthful of blood stopped the words. Everything faded into flashing lights. The ambulance ceiling became the only thing I could focus on. Bright white lights rushed past above me while machines beeped beside my head. A paramedic pressed against my stomach. "Stay awake." "I'm trying." My voice barely sounded like mine. Pain rolled through my body again. It stole every breath. My phone rested on my chest. One thought refused to leave me. Olivia. My thumb shook as I unlocked the screen. Her picture smiled back at me. The same smile that had once convinced me I would never face life alone. I pressed call. 1 ring. 2. 3. She answered. "Ethan." Relief washed over me. "Liv." The words caught behind another wave of pain. "I'm in an ambulance." Her breathing changed. "What happened?" "They think internal bleeding." Silence. Only the ambulance siren filled the space between us. "I need surgery." Another painful breath escaped me. "Please come." She didn't answer immediately. Instead, I heard another voice somewhere near her. Ryan. Even through the phone, I recognized him. He sounded upset. Louder than usual. Almost desperate. Olivia lowered her voice. "Ethan, Ryan just called me." My fingers tightened around the phone. "He lost his job today." I closed my eyes. He's falling apart. Every word landed harder than the pain inside my body. "He says he doesn't want to be alone." The paramedic reached for my arm. "We're almost there." I barely noticed him. "Liv, I know." Her voice carried guilt. "I know this is terrible." Another pause. "But Ryan has nobody." I stared at the ceiling. For a second, I thought I had heard her wrong. "I'm scared." The confession came out weaker than I wanted. "I don't know what's happening. I'll come after I calm him down." Those words echoed inside my head. It won't take long. The ambulance stopped. Doors flew open. Cold air rushed inside. Doctors surrounded me immediately. "Sir, stay awake. We're moving." The phone slipped from my hand onto the stretcher. Olivia was still talking. "I promise. I'll be there later." The call ended. Hospital lights were even brighter. Everything moved too fast. People surrounded me from every direction. Someone cut open my shirt. Another nurse attached wires across my chest. Blood pressure. Heart monitor. For line. Questions came one after another. "Any allergies?" "No." "Previous surgeries?" "No." "When did the pain begin?" "I don't know." My vision blurred again. A doctor reviewed my scans. His expression changed instantly. "We don't have much time." Another nurse hurried toward him. "He needs emergency surgery." The doctor nodded. "We need consent immediately." He turned toward me. "Is your wife coming?" I forced myself to answer. She said she would." The nurse looked toward the waiting room. Nobody walked through the doors. Minutes stretched into nearly an hour. Pain medicine dulled the burning inside me, but it couldn't quiet my thoughts. Every time footsteps approached, hope lifted inside my chest. Every time they passed my room, hope disappeared again. The visitor's chair remained empty. A young nurse gently adjusted my blanket. "We've been trying to reach your emergency contact." "My wife." She hesitated. No answer. I swallowed hard. "Try again." She offered a small smile. "We will." She stepped outside. I stared at my phone. No messages. No missed calls. Nothing. Maybe Ryan really needed her. Maybe she'd arrive any minute. Maybe traffic was bad. Maybe. The excuses came automatically. I had been making them for years. The doctor returned. His face had grown more serious. "We can't delay this much longer." My breathing quickened. "My wife. We still can't reach her." He crouched beside my bed. "Do you have anyone else?" One name came to mind immediately. "My sister, Grace." The nurse dialed her number. She answered almost instantly. Within 20 minutes, she rushed into the room. Her hair was messy. She still wore office clothes. She looked terrified. Ethan, she grabbed my hand. What happened? I managed a weak smile. I'm sorry. Don't apologize. Her eyes filled with tears as she looked toward the doctor. What do you need? The consent papers were placed in front of her. She didn't even hesitate. The pen moved across the paper. Signature complete. Decision made. She had arrived. Olivia hadn't. Grace noticed me looking toward the hallway. Did you tell her? I nodded. A painful silence followed. She already understood. No explanation was necessary. Her hand squeezed mine. I'm here. Those 3 words somehow hurt even more, because they didn't come from my wife. The operating room felt freezing cold. Doctors moved around me with practice speed. Masks, gloves, bright lights, machines. The anesthesiologist leaned over. We're taking care of you. I nodded slowly. The medicine entered my arm. Everything began fading. One last thought remained. Maybe Olivia would be waiting when I woke up. Maybe. Darkness, then voices. Soft, far away. Someone called my name. Ethan. Heavy eyelids slowly opened. The recovery room came into focus. Pain wrapped around my stomach. Bandages stretched beneath the blanket. A machine beeped steadily beside me. I turned my head. Grace sat beside the bed. She smiled with tired eyes. You made it. I tried speaking. Only a whisper came out. Surgery. Successful. Relief washed over me. Then another question appeared before I could stop it. Olivia? Grace didn't answer. She simply looked toward the empty visitor's chair. Nobody sat there. Nobody had. Hours had passed. The chair never moved. Something inside me quietly cracked. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just enough that I finally stopped lying to myself. If she truly wanted to be here, she would have been. The next morning arrived slowly. Grace went home to shower before returning later. The room became quiet. Almost too quiet. My phone rested on the bedside table. Several work messages. A few missed calls. Nothing from Olivia. Not even a simple, "How are you?" I unlocked the screen anyway. Maybe she had sent something overnight. Nothing. Without thinking, I opened social media. The first picture froze my entire body. Olivia. Ryan. They sat together in a small cafe. Coffee cups between them. Ryan smiled. Olivia smiled, even wider. The sunlight made them look carefree. Happy. I stared at the photo until the timestamp finally caught my attention. Posted 2 hours ago. My surgery had ended only 4 hours earlier. Which meant, while I was lying unconscious on an operating table, my wife had been smiling across a cafe table with a man she claimed couldn't be left alone. No emergency. No hospital. No rushing to my bedside. Just coffee. And smiles. For the first time since we married, I couldn't find a single excuse left to make. The hospital released me 5 days later, but part of me never left that room. The stitches across my stomach pulled every time I stood up, reminding me to move slowly. The wound inside my heart needed no reminder. Grace carried my overnight bag while I leaned against the elevator wall. You don't have to go home today. Her voice was gentle. You can stay with me until you're stronger. A small smile crossed my face. I've already hidden from enough things. She understood what I meant. Neither of us mentioned Olivia. Not yet. The drive home was quiet. Rain tapped against the windshield. Every red light gave me another excuse to delay walking through my own front door. Grace finally broke the silence. Can I ask you something? I nodded. When did you start believing you deserved second place? The question landed harder than I expected. I never. The answer stopped halfway. Hadn't I? Memory after memory began rising to the surface. A birthday dinner that turned cold because Ryan had a panic attack. A weekend trip canceled after he called saying he couldn't handle being alone. Movie nights interrupted. Family holidays shortened. Late-night phone calls that always seemed more urgent than whatever we were doing. Every time, Olivia wore the same guilty expression. He really needs me. Every time, I smiled. It's okay. Those 2 words had become the foundation of our marriage. It's okay, even when it wasn't. Grace kept driving. You've spent years protecting her from the consequences of her choices. Her hands tightened around the steering wheel. Who's been protecting you? I had no answer. The house looked exactly the same. The flowers near the front porch still needed watering. Our welcome mat still sat crooked. The living room lights were on. Everything looked normal. That somehow made it worse. Olivia rushed toward me the moment I stepped inside. Ethan. She wrapped her arms around me carefully, avoiding the stitches. I've been so worried. My body stayed still. The hug ended much sooner than she expected. You should be resting. She reached for my bag. I'll carry that. Grace stepped between us first. I've got it. The air grew heavy. Olivia offered an awkward smile. Thank you for helping him. Grace met her eyes. He needed somebody. No anger. No raised voice. Just the truth. It was enough. Grace left after making sure I had my medication. I'll call tonight. She squeezed my shoulder before walking out. If you need anything, don't wait. The front door closed. Now it was only the two of us. Olivia stood near the kitchen. Her fingers twisted together. I wanted to visit every day. I stayed quiet. Ryan. She stopped. Her eyes searched mine. He wasn't doing well. Still nothing. He lost everything. The words came faster. He could barely get out of bed. I slowly lowered myself into a chair. Every movement reminded me of the surgery. I almost lost my life. She flinched. I know. I almost died. I know. Another pause. I'm sorry. The apology floated across the room. It sounded practiced, polite, safe. Then came the sentence I already expected. You have to understand how difficult things were for Ryan. My eyes drifted toward the window. Outside, children laughed while riding bicycles. Inside, my marriage kept falling apart. She prepared dinner that evening. Roasted chicken, mashed potatoes, vegetables. One of my favorite meals. Steam rose from the plates. Neither of us touched the food. I wanted to make something nice. I thanked her with a small nod. She picked up her fork. Set it down again. You've barely spoken since coming home. There wasn't much left to say. I'm trying. Trying what? To understand. Her shoulders relaxed slightly. I knew you would. You always understand. That sentence stayed in the air. She smiled faintly, believing it was reassurance. It wasn't. The dining table pulled me into another memory. Our 4th wedding anniversary. Candles. Fresh flowers. Dinner growing colder by the minute. Olivia answering her phone. Ryan crying on the other end. I'm so sorry. She had grabbed her coat. I'll make it up to you. The front door closed. The candles burned themselves out. I ate alone that night, just like countless evenings afterward. Back then, I convinced myself love meant patience. Now I wondered if patience without limits simply became permission. Olivia reached across the table. I'm really trying to fix this. My eyes met hers. Are you? She hesitated. What do you mean? The hospital. I apologized. Our anniversary. I apologized. My birthday. I apologized. She swallowed. The vacation we canceled. The dinner with my parents. Her hands slowly pulled back. I didn't mean to hurt you. I know. That answer surprised her. You know, I believe you never wanted to hurt me. Relief appeared on her face. Then I quietly finished the thought. You just never wanted to disappoint Ryan either. Her expression changed instantly. It's not like that. Then what is it? She searched for words. He depends on me, and I don't. The room became very still. She opened her mouth. Nothing came out, because there wasn't an answer that could make sense. Dinner ended almost untouched. She gathered the plates. I'll clean up. I nodded. Walking slowly toward the living room, I stopped beside our wedding photo. We looked happy, hopeful, certain. The younger version of me believed love alone could solve anything. He didn't know that love also needed priorities, respect, choice. My hand reached for my wedding ring. It had rested on my finger every day since our wedding. Removing it felt strangely difficult, not because of the metal, because of everything it represented. Promises, dreams, years. I turned it once, then twice. Finally, it slipped free. The mark around my finger remained. I placed the ring beside the framed wedding photo. Neither belonged to the man I had become. Olivia walked into the room, carrying 2 cups of tea. She noticed the empty space on my hand immediately. Her smile disappeared. Ethan, the cup trembled slightly. What are you doing? I needed to take it off. Why? It became too heavy. She stared at the ring. This isn't funny. I wasn't trying to be. She placed the tea on the table with shaking hands. You can't just... Her voice broke. You can't do this because of one mistake. I raised my eyes. One mistake. She froze. The answer sat between us. Neither of us touched it. That night, she slept facing the opposite side of the bed. Sleep never came to me. Around midnight, her phone vibrated softly. The screen lit up. Ryan. She quietly slipped out of bed. The bedroom door closed behind her. I listened to her whispering somewhere down the hallway. 20 minutes passed, then 30. When she finally returned, she believed I was asleep. She gently plugged her phone into the charger. Within minutes, her breathing became slow and steady. Mine never did. Morning arrived with sunlight pouring through the curtains. Olivia left early. Ryan has a meeting. She grabbed her purse. He asked if I could come with him. I simply nodded. She waited, maybe expecting an argument, maybe hoping I'd stop her. Instead, I watched the front door close. The house became peaceful. Not happy, just peaceful. Later that afternoon, I searched our online banking account to pay a hospital bill. The balance looked wrong, much lower than I remembered. At first, I thought the medication charges had already been processed. Then I opened the transaction history. One transfer, $40,000. Completed 3 weeks earlier. Recipient, Ryan Foster. No note, no discussion, no permission. Just money taken from the savings account we had built together for nearly 7 years. My hand stayed perfectly still on the keyboard. The hospital had shown me who mattered more during my darkest hour. Now the bank statement revealed something even worse. She hadn't only given Ryan her time. She had quietly given him our future too. The bank statement stayed open on my laptop long after the screen went dark. $40,000. Our emergency savings. Gone without a single conversation. The strange part wasn't the anger. It was how calm I felt. The storm had already passed. What remained was clarity. Olivia came home just before sunset. She smiled when she saw me sitting in the living room. I picked up your medicine. A small paper bag rested in her hand. You didn't have to. I wanted to. She noticed my laptop. You've been working already? No. I turned the screen toward her. The transaction history appeared. Her smile disappeared. Color slowly left her face. You checked the account. I did. She stood frozen. It wasn't what it looks like. I'd like to know what it looks like. She sat down across from me. Ryan's name filled the space between us before either of us spoke again. He needed help. I noticed. He promised he'd pay it back. When were you planning to tell me? Her fingers wrapped around each other. I didn't want to upset you while you were recovering. A tired breath escaped me. The transfer happened 3 weeks before I collapsed. She lowered her head. There wasn't another excuse waiting this time. Only silence. I trusted you. Those words came out softer than I expected. It wasn't just money. I know. You spent years asking me to believe there was nothing between you and Ryan. There isn't. Then why does he know about our savings when I don't? Tears gathered in her eyes. I thought I was helping someone. You were. My voice remained steady. It just wasn't your husband. She reached across the coffee table. My hands stayed where they were. The distance between us had become much larger than a few feet. The next morning I met with the bank. Removing my name from shared accounts felt strangely simple. One signature. A few forms. 10 minutes. Years of trust reduced to paperwork. When I finished, I stared at the empty line where both our names had once appeared. Some endings didn't arrive with shouting. Some arrived with a pen. Grace waited outside the bank. How did it go? It's done. She searched my face. You okay? I don't know. That answer felt honest. She nodded. You don't have to know today. By the end of the week, I packed one suitcase. A few clothes. My medication. Family photos. Everything else stayed behind. Olivia stood near the front door while I zipped the bag. So you're really leaving? For now. You could stay here. I glanced around the house. It stopped feeling like home a long time ago. Her lips trembled. I'll fix this. You can't fix years in one afternoon. She stepped closer. I never stopped loving you. I believe that. Hope flashed across her face. Then I quietly continued. But love without choices doesn't save a marriage. She reached for my arm. I picked up the suitcase instead. Grace's guest room wasn't large. A bed, a small desk, one window overlooking the backyard. It felt peaceful. That first night, I slept longer than I had in months. No waiting for late-night phone calls. No wondering who mattered more. No pretending everything was fine. Only quiet. Recovery became my full-time job. 3 mornings every week, I attended physical therapy. Walking without pain became my first goal. Trusting my own body again became the second. One afternoon, my therapist introduced me to another staff member. Ethan, this is Emma. She smiled warmly. I'll help with your recovery exercises. Emma never treated me like I was broken. She counted repetitions, corrected my posture, celebrated small improvements. Nothing more, nothing less. One session ended later than usual. I struggled to lift my arm during an exercise. Frustration escaped before I could stop it. I used to carry steel beams. Emma handed me a towel. Now you're healing from major surgery. It feels slow. Healing usually is. She leaned against the counter. Most people think recovery means getting back to who they were. I listened quietly. What if recovery means becoming someone stronger? The question stayed with me all day. A few weeks passed. Strength slowly returned. The pain around my stitches became easier to manage. The pain inside me changed too. Not smaller, just different. Less desperate. More accepting. Olivia called almost every evening. Sometimes I answered. Most nights I didn't. She left voice messages instead. I miss you. We need to talk. I know you're hurting. I finally understand. Understanding always seemed to arrive after the damage was done. One Saturday afternoon she asked to meet. Grace quietly placed a cup of coffee beside me. You don't have to go. I know. But I should hear her. We met at a small park, the same place where we had once planned our future together. She looked tired. The confidence she carried for years had faded. I found out something. I stayed silent. She took a slow breath. Ryan lied. The words sounded painful to say. He never lost his apartment. He wasn't behind on his bills. He already had another job lined up. Her eyes filled with disappointment. He just didn't want me pulling away. I nodded once. She searched my face. Is that all? What else should there be? Aren't you angry? I already was. She looked confused. Then why are you so calm? Because I stopped fighting someone else's battle. She sat beside me on the bench. I defended him every time. You did. I kept believing he needed me. You did. I kept thinking our marriage was strong enough to survive it. A small breeze moved through the trees. Our marriage survived a lot. Her voice became almost a whisper. But not me. I looked toward the lake. We both changed. She wiped away a tear. I can still change. I hope you do. Those words weren't a promise. They were a wish. Nothing more. As the weeks continued, I accepted more work from my company. Mostly remote projects. My manager even offered me a promotion once I fully recovered. The old me would have turned it down. This time I asked for the details. Life kept moving. I finally moved with it. Emma noticed the difference during therapy. You smiled today. I laughed quietly. Did I? You forgot to be afraid for 5 whole minutes. That made both of us smile. There was no flirting. No hidden meaning. Just kindness freely given. I had almost forgotten what unconditional kindness felt like. Late one evening, Grace looked out the living room window. Ethan. I walked over. Olivia stood outside. A small box rested in her hands. She looked nervous. I'll give you two some privacy. Grace disappeared upstairs. I opened the apartment door halfway. Neither of us spoke immediately. She slowly opened the box. My wedding ring rested inside. I found it beside our picture. Her voice shook. I think it belongs to you. My eyes stayed on the ring. Months ago, I would have reached for it without thinking. Now it looked like a memory instead of a future. You should keep it. She blinked. What? It reminds you where everything started. Tears rolled down her cheeks. "Ethan, please." My hand rested on the edge of the door. "I truly hope you find peace. And us." A long moment passed. The answer didn't need many words. "I've already started finding mine." The door closed gently before she could place the ring in my hand. For the first time in years, I chose myself instead of waiting to be chosen. The phone rang just after sunrise. Grace glanced at the screen before handing it to me. "It's Olivia." I stared at the name for a few seconds. A few months ago, my heart would have raced. Now it was simply another decision. I answered. Her breathing came first. Uneven. Almost shaky. "Ethan." She struggled to continue. "Ryan's gone." I leaned against the kitchen counter. "What happened?" "He left." Another pause. "He met someone else?" No anger escaped my lips. No satisfaction either. Only quiet acceptance. "I see. I was just—" Her voice cracked. "I was only someone convenient." The words hung in the air. For years she hadn't noticed that I had lived with that same feeling. After the call ended, I walked into the backyard. The morning air felt cool against my face. Grace joined me with 2 mugs of coffee. "You okay?" "I think so." She studied me for a moment. "You don't sound happy." "I'm not." "Sad." I slowly shook my head. "I just don't enjoy watching people break." Grace smiled gently. "That's why you survived all of this." Life continued moving forward. Physical therapy ended. The doctors cleared me to return to work. Walking back into the office felt strangely emotional. The same building where I had collapsed now welcomed me back with applause. My coworkers gathered near the conference room. Daniel walked over first. "Look who finally remembered we exist." A laugh escaped me. "It's good to be back." He pulled me into a careful hug. "Don't scare us like that again." "I'll try." Work became something different after my recovery. Not an escape, not a distraction, a chance to rebuild. My manager invited me into his office before lunch. "I've been waiting until your health improved." He slid a folder across the desk. "The Riverside Development Project." I opened it slowly. It was the biggest contract our company had ever received. "We want you leading it." I looked up in surprise. "Me? You earned it long before your surgery." He smiled. "Now it's time you believe it too." The project demanded long hours, careful planning, strong leadership. Months earlier, I would have questioned every decision I made. Now I trusted myself again. Every completed stage reminded me that my value had never depended on someone else's attention. Meanwhile, life refused to stay quiet. News traveled faster than I expected. Not because I told anyone, because people noticed. Friends asked Olivia why she hadn't been at the hospital. Coworkers remembered seeing her cafe photo online. Neighbors wondered why I had moved out. Small conversations slowly connected into one painful picture. Nobody needed a dramatic speech. The truth explained itself. Daniel stopped by my office one afternoon. "You know everyone's talking." I figured. "They aren't talking about you." I raised an eyebrow. "They're asking how someone could leave her husband during emergency surgery." He leaned against the doorway. "No one's attacking her. They're just disappointed." I nodded quietly. That somehow sounded worse. A week later, Grace called while I was reviewing blueprints. She went back to the house. I stayed silent. She finally saw everything. My lawyer had already finished preparing the property division. The moving company had collected the last of my belongings days earlier. Only legal paperwork remained. Grace later described what Olivia found. The living room echoed differently. My bookshelves were empty. The closet where my clothes once hung showed only bare wooden hangers. The framed wedding picture no longer rested above the fireplace. Only a lighter square remained on the wall where sunlight had never reached. The kitchen table held one neat stack of papers. Divorce documents. Waiting quietly. No dramatic note. No angry message. Just signatures waiting for another signature. That evening, Olivia called again. This time I answered from my office balcony. I walked through every room. Her voice barely rose above a whisper. "It doesn't even feel like our home anymore." "It isn't." I kept touching things. She paused to steady herself. "I remembered every dinner you waited for me. Another breath. The anniversary. My birthday. The hospital." Each memory arrived like another weight she had to carry. I thought there would always be another chance. I closed my eyes for a moment. So did I. Weeks passed. Construction reached another major milestone. The Riverside project moved ahead of schedule. The company celebrated with a dinner. My manager stood before everyone holding a glass. To Ethan, the room applauded. This project nearly fell apart after his medical emergency. He smiled toward me. Instead, he came back stronger. I thanked everyone, not with a long speech, just a few honest words. I spent a long time believing strength meant carrying everything alone. Several coworkers listened quietly. It turns out real strength begins when you stop accepting less than you deserve. The applause lasted much longer than my speech. Driving home that night, I noticed something unexpected. I wasn't thinking about Olivia anymore. Not because I hated her. Not because I wanted revenge. My life had simply become larger than my pain. That realization felt more valuable than any promotion. The divorce hearing arrived on a gray autumn morning. The courthouse looked cold from the outside. Inside, everything felt strangely calm. My lawyer reviewed the final documents. Everything is straightforward. I nodded. I'm ready. Olivia entered a few minutes later. She looked thinner. The confidence that once filled every room had quietly disappeared. She wore no makeup, no jewelry. Even the necklace Ryan had given her was gone. Our eyes met briefly. She offered a weak smile. I returned a polite nod. Nothing more. The judge reviewed the paperwork. Questions, answers, dates, legal details. Everything sounded distant, almost mechanical. Years of marriage reduced to signatures and official language. The papers finally reached Olivia. She picked up the pen. Her hand stopped halfway. Tears gathered, but she quickly wiped them away. There would be no dramatic scene, only consequences. She signed. The pen rested on the table. The marriage ended with one quiet movement. People slowly began leaving the courtroom. My lawyer stepped outside to make copies. The judge disappeared through another door. For a brief moment, only the two of us remained. Olivia stood slowly. She held the edge of the table as though she needed help staying upright. Ethan. I turned toward her. She walked closer but stopped several feet away. The distance felt appropriate. I know I don't deserve another chance. Her fingers trembled. I know I destroyed the life we built. She lowered her eyes. I keep wishing I could go back to that hospital. A small tear slipped down her cheek. I'd stay. She took one slow breath. I'd choose you. The words arrived too late to change anything. She looked up one last time. There was no argument left. No excuses. Only one fragile question. Can we start over? Can we start over? Olivia's voice barely rose above a whisper. The courtroom felt smaller than it had a few minutes earlier. The papers were signed. The judge had already left. Only one answer remained. I looked at the woman I had once believed would grow old beside me. The tears on her face were real. So was her regret. Neither could change the past. My hand rested lightly on the back of a chair. It reminded me of another room, another chair, a hospital visitor's chair that stayed empty while I lay waiting for surgery. That memory never needed to shout. It only had to exist. I could still hear the machines, still remember the bright lights above me, still remember whispering into my phone, "Please come." She hadn't. That single choice had quietly changed everything that followed. Olivia took another careful step. "If you give me one more chance." The sentence faded before reaching the end. Even she knew how impossible those words sounded. I met her eyes. There was no anger left inside me, only honesty. I've thought about this day many times. She listened without moving. At first I imagined yelling. A faint smile crossed my face. I imagined asking why wasn't enough. Another slow breath. I imagined making you feel every bit of the pain I carried. The room remained still, but life did something better. Her eyebrows lifted slightly. It helped me heal. A tear slipped down her cheek. I never wanted to lose you. I know. I was blind. You were. I kept believing there would always be another tomorrow. I nodded gently. So did I. She lowered her eyes. I replay that phone call every night. Her fingers trembled around a folded tissue. I hear your voice asking me to come. Another tear landed on the papers. I keep wishing I had chosen differently. The sadness in her voice sounded genuine. Months ago, hearing those words would have broken me. Now they only confirmed something I had already accepted. Regret always arrives after opportunity leaves. I need you to know something. She slowly looked up again. I don't hate you. Confusion crossed her face. You don't? No. Hatred would have kept me tied to the past. I had already carried enough weight. What happened between us was painful. I paused for a moment. But pain isn't the whole story. She waited quietly. You taught me something without meaning to. A small breath escaped her. What? That loving someone shouldn't mean disappearing. The words felt lighter once they were spoken. I spent years trying to become everything you needed. My gaze drifted toward the courthouse window. I forgot I deserved someone who would do the same for me. Her shoulders began shaking. I'm sorry. The apology came from somewhere deep inside her. Not rushed, not rehearsed, just honest. I know saying it changes nothing. It doesn't. She nodded slowly. I understand. A long silence stretched between us. This time it wasn't uncomfortable. It felt respectful. Two people standing at the end of a road, neither of us could walk again. I want to thank you. Her eyes widened. For what? The question sounded almost frightened. Not because what happened was right. I shook my head gently. It wasn't. Another quiet moment passed. But surviving all of this forced me to become someone stronger. I smiled softly. The man who walked into that hospital believed love meant endless sacrifice. My hand rested over the faint scar beneath my shirt. The man standing here finally understands that love also needs respect. Fresh tears rolled down her face. I wish I had met this version of you sooner. You did. She looked confused. I was always becoming this person. A sad smile appeared. You just couldn't see him while you were looking somewhere else. She covered her mouth for a second. The weight of those words settled over both of us. There was nothing left to defend, nothing left to explain, only acceptance. My lawyer returned with the final copies. Everything was complete. He handed me the documents. We're finished. I thanked him. Olivia quietly accepted her copy. She stared at the signatures for a long time, then carefully folded the papers. It looked as though she understood she wasn't folding paper. She was folding away the life we had once promised each other. Near the courthouse entrance, she stopped walking. So this is really goodbye. I smiled gently. I think goodbye happened a long time ago. She closed her eyes for a brief moment. Then she nodded. I know. Neither of us reached for a hug. Some endings deserve distance. Not because love never existed, because it no longer belonged in the future. Winter slowly turned into spring. Life settled into a peaceful rhythm. The Riverside project finished ahead of schedule. The company celebrated with another promotion. Grace insisted on cooking dinner every Sunday. Daniel never stopped making terrible jokes. Emma continued helping patients with the same quiet kindness she had shown me. My world kept growing, not because someone new replaced Olivia, because I finally made room for myself inside my own life. 6 months later, I returned to the hospital. Just a routine follow-up appointment. The doctor reviewed my scans before smiling. Everything looks excellent. He closed the file. You're fully recovered. I thanked him and walked into the hallway. The same hallway. The same polished floors. The same scent of disinfectant. Time folded in on itself. For a moment, I could almost see the frightened man lying on that stretcher. His face was pale. His hands were shaking. He still believed someone was coming to save him. I wished I could place a hand on his shoulder. I wished I could tell him the truth. You're going to survive. Not because she comes back. Because you learn how to stand without waiting. The empty visitor's chair outside another patient's room caught my attention. I smiled sadly. Once, that image had represented abandonment. Now it reminded me how far I had traveled. Some people leave. That doesn't mean life leaves with them. My phone vibrated while I waited for the elevator. A promotional message appeared. Without thinking, I opened my contacts. Olivia's name still rested there. Months had passed. No calls. No messages. No reason to keep holding on. My thumb hovered over the screen. Delete contact. The phone asked one simple question. Are you sure? This time the answer came without hesitation. Yes, the name disappeared. So did the final thread connecting me to a life that no longer existed. The hospital doors opened. Warm morning sunlight spilled across the sidewalk. I stopped for one deep breath. The air felt cleaner than I remembered. Cars passed. People hurried toward appointments. Life moved forward without asking anyone's permission. Mine finally did too. Looking back at the building, one final truth settled quietly inside me. Our last goodbye had never happened in the courtroom. It hadn't happened when the divorce papers were signed. It hadn't happened when I closed my apartment door. Our last goodbye happened the moment I lay bleeding in a hospital bed, and the woman I loved chose another man instead. That choice ended our story. My choice began a new one. With one last breath, I turned toward the morning sunlight. This time I didn't look back. I simply kept walking,